Welcome to the Balanced Collective, where we love to go deep, talk big, and get real. I'm your host, Danielle Boyd, and every episode is going to bring a new concept or guest to talk all about things wellness, balance, and alignment. Our purpose here is to bridge the concepts of science and spirit to bring wellness and ease into the lives of our listeners while not taking life too seriously. We like to get down and deep into our shadow while keeping things raw, fun, and real. Thank you so much for listening. Let's get to it. Hey team, welcome to the podcast this week. My interview today is with someone who's relatively new in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. Today I sat down and chatted with Christine Banno. Christine owns SWEAT Vancity here in North Vancouver. It's a beautiful TRX training studio. I met Christine at the beginning of the year, even though I had actually been to her studio a few times, a couple of years ago. And her name had been, popped up into my life a few times prior. However, in January, I started doing a wellness coaching program through the College of Mind, Body, Spirit, coached with Dr. Divi and Lynette Brown. And Christine happened to be in my group. And Christine and I have totally connected since then. We went on a trip to Sedona in April and just absolutely hit it off. We both have huge interests in the realm of fitness and wellness in the health industry, and just amazing connection. I am really, really excited to share this interview with Christine. She shares a lot about her own personal story, her struggles, her vulnerabilities, and where she's at and how SWEAT Vancity is about to grow. I'm really excited to share this with you because Christine is just an amazing person with a ton of personal growth, a ton of experience, and some very, very funny tidbits of information to share with you. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Thanks so much.
We are live.
We are live. Hi, Christine. Welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Me too.
I know, this is great. We're here at Christine's studio, SWEAT Vancity in beautiful North Van, and it's Friday, so we're in a good mood.
Sunny. I just got a great card from you.
I love it. So in an effort to kind of separate myself from my job, I have been trying to introduce myself a little bit more to who I am and my truth, and I thought I'd let you do the same. So welcome, and I'll have you just introduce yourself. How are you doing that these days?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Okay, so let me break that down a little bit. So who am I and what am I doing in the world? Or what?
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Christine Banno. I'm so happy to be here. It's my first podcast, so it's a little, it's really exciting. So logistics, if you want to know my labels, I own, let's go over the labels first so that I can dissect that further. So I am a mom to a beautiful 2.5-year-old named Eva, such a special little old soul. She's incredible. I am married, so I'm married to Kevin. We've been together for, 7 years, maybe, around that. Yeah, wild journey there. That's a whole other podcast. And then I own a fitness studio, so-called SWEAT Vancity in North Vancouver. We're a TRX suspension training studio. This is kind of my other baby as well. So we've been open we came up on 3 years in June. So you do the math with my daughter and the studio. I got pregnant a month after we opened. And then I also do, I have a whole sort of other sort of side that I'm now expressing in the world a lot more as well. So for a long time, my sort of labels were mother and wife and business owner, and there's so much more to that. But I am now doing intuitive coaching as well, so business coaching, personal coaching, wellness coaching. Just really honing my skills on that, running retreats. I'm a Lululemon ambassador. What else? What are my other titles? Let me think here. Running, different workshops and stuff here. I just started something called Soulful Sunday at the studio as well, which is something really close to my heart. It was actually really nerve-wracking launching it because showing yourself to the world when you do have sort of a side you know, you have your business, and then there's something quite, showing that sort of softer side of yourself is something that can be really vulnerable sometimes. But throughout the past sort of 6 months, I've had a lot of support, and so that's sort of, we do about 30 minutes of stretch, 10 to 15 minutes of breath and meditation work, mindfulness, and then 40. I usually actually channel sort of something before I tune into the group's energy beforehand, kind of like I do my retreats, and I usually read something, some sort of message that is kind of downloaded through my awareness to say to people, and then we do about 45 minutes of conversation, and just starting to build a really cool community of like-minded people who are really open to that, and spirituality, and sort of like wanting to grow and evolve and stuff like that. So it's been really cool to add that part to my business recently, and coaching I'm absolutely loving, and it's just, there's a lot of like hats, and I'm figuring out what's what right now, and just ways to express myself in the world.
So cool. And like having the studio is such an amazing way to bring it all together, and sometimes it's really hard to marry our, you know, like our businesses and our passions together, and so the fact that you've been able to kind of find a home for both of them is really beautiful, and I think you've unlocked a whole new set of people who may not have had that experience otherwise, so I think that's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But the vision for Sweat was always to bring together everything I loved. I love fitness. I love moving my body. I think it's such an important part of my mental health and my, you know, physical health, and stuff like that. But I also love, I absolutely love that part of it. But I did realize when we opened the studio, I really envisioned a much larger component in terms of as well, sort of mind, body, spirit completely, sort of, because at the end of the day, we can train I've learned at least, I can train my physical body as much as I want, but if I'm not emotionally or mentally in a good place, that it really doesn't matter how much, you know, I've sort of worked myself to the bone when I was in my 20s. Well, it's part of my story, but in my 20s, I just roller coastered with like losing weight and gaining weight, and I was overweight as a kid, so I think I always sort of had this sort of stick in me since I was quite young about physical appearance, and I just thought, okay, if I just get skinny, or if I just sort of look good, I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to be able to make it work. And as I got into my teens and 20s, I sort of found fitness and kind of went off the deep end with it, and was taking diet pills, and really kind of went sort of working out 3 hours a day and not eating enough, and got really sort of, if you want to call it, in like quote unquote perfect shape. Like, you know, I had abs. I was just like, okay, I've made it. I was absolutely miserable. Didn't enjoy, like, I didn't find pleasure in working out anymore. It was just become something that I was obsessive about, and so that turned me to realize that, you know, happiness and that fulfillment comes from the inside, and through my journey, which is, again, we can talk about a little bit more today, but that's kind of taken me to where I am now. But having Sweat has been amazing, and now that my daughter is 2.5, I feel like I've created some space. That first 2 years was absolutely crazy, opening a startup business and trying to navigate, you know, business ownership with really no past experience in business, to just completely, you know, finding passion and love, and you know, just absolutely like loving the idea and knowing that I was meant to do this, and kind of just running on that. I mean, it's, wow. Looking back, if I had known what sort of business ownership was going to look like, I might not have taken the venture. But I feel like that kind of fearless, like, let's just do it. Let's, you know, fuck it. Let's go for it. Jump off the cliff. On the way down. Yeah, exactly. So it's been a couple of years of madness, but it's really cool to see the community, and just to see things build here. And, you know, we've got a really amazing foundation now, and to see physical fitness sort of obviously be a really huge component. But with that being said, there's this support network now around, you know, mental well-being, and around emotional well-being, and just just offering sort of the full package of you know, health.
It's so true. And I see, you know, like, obviously it's been a building trend for people to discover fitness and have different ways of moving their body, but I really am noticing now that people are diving into that mind-body component of it, and really starting to understand that, I have to exercise my mental capacity and my mindfulness in order to be more physical, or be more present, or be, you know, XYZ in my life. What do you think one of the biggest lessons is that you've learned through your journey about, you know, the role of mindfulness and mental wellness in your daily life?
Ooh, it's been a journey.
There's probably a few of them, but
the biggest thing I've learned from mindfulness, I practice mindfulness on a daily basis now. I went through all polarities of not being mindful of completely sort of, if you want to call it living in the fog, I like to call it, or unconsciously reactive, just stuff like that. It depends where my fear is at and how sort of where that scale is. I feel like I'm in the best place in my life in terms of balance. I feel like I finally sort of navigated to all edges of hell, pardon my language, but you know what I mean? Like I've kind of just hit all edges of it. And often through not listening to my body, and just kind of pushing through. And I think that when when my back was against the wall, when, you know, we opened and, you know, of course I was just like way in over my head and sort of felt very lost and like, what am I doing? And I opened this because I thought I was really passionate and like all that kind of stuff. So I've really had to, especially in the last 2.5 years, well, it's been a building block throughout my life, I'm sure, all these experiences that I've had, but really listening to that inner voice, my intuition, trusting that, having a really strong mindfulness practice. I get up and I meditate every day. It's become, at first it was very hard. In fact, when I was younger, my mom's an amazing woman, and she's been very spiritual and very mindful sort of her whole life. And I used to actually, when people used to say meditation, I used to cringe, like literally cringe. Thought it was weird, I thought it was woo-woo, and then when I used to pop into her room and sneak in when I was younger, I saw her meditating, and I was just like, ugh, weird, you know, like just hated it, like actually hated it. And what I've learned is that the things I hate the most, or the most things that I resist, I actually are the things that are most needed in my life. Like I've learned that lesson many times, that things I'm like, ugh, you know, instantly have that sort of like, ugh, too. I actually have come to a very large capacity into my life. So, yeah, just mindfulness has been huge for balance for me. Listening to my body, which has been pretty tough when I feel like I need to do this. I've got so many expectations. I've got so many responsibilities. I've got staff, 12 staff. I've got this. I've got that. Like the things can build forever. But I'm just learning to take more inspired action versus feeling like I need to do it all right now. Like I'm really learning to step back and say, like, what is important, prioritize, where does my energy need to go? Because I've experienced I can run myself ragged in every direction. My to-do list could go on for days. So I'm just learning to really, what's important, what's not. And my health has become something that I'm really sort of huge boundaries around in terms of my health and my well-being and self-care, and just deciding what I need to be healthy and happy, essentially.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. So in self-care, do you have any non-negotiables? Like, what are your things that you have to do every day? You mentioned meditation, obviously.
Yeah.
What are kind of your self-care non-negotiables?
Self-care non-negotiables. I thought about this a little bit. It's something that I tend to teach actually in my retreats. I teach a lot in my retreats, and it's funny because I can see it so clearly for other people. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when it comes to myself, I'm like, oh, what do I do? Meditation is huge. I will always meditate, and I know there's, for a long time I made up a lot of excuses why I couldn't, but it's sort of a non-negotiable. I get up and I give myself that time, so if it means I have to get up a bit early before my daughter's awake. Luckily my daughter is amazing and will sleep in, like she's
score.
Decent. Yeah, she's score for sure.
Yeah.
She's been an amazing sleeper. We've been very blessed with that. But I meditate. I don't schedule, so actually a big act of self-care is not scheduling myself every second of the day. So for a long time what I did is I would feel like, okay, I need to take that meeting, I need to meet this person, always that fearful, really lack mentality. So I was always like, okay, I'll schedule this meeting and then back to back, and then I'll give myself 2 seconds, then I'll do this, and I'll have this meeting, and I'll do this meeting. And so my whole days I wasn't giving myself any time to process process things or to even be present. So I was sort of moving so fast throughout life. So a big self-care and boundary for me now is I really give myself time, space, so I don't take on too many things. Like I really sort of, again, that comes from a lot of experience of fucking up and taking on way too much and getting really sick. Self-care is huge in terms of boundaries. My husband and I have created a really good program where, he'll take a few days. He's really involved in the Man-Talks community, which is amazing. So he'll do his retreats and stuff. He'll do like a couple days away. I'm trying to get away to Whistler next week for a day or two, just so I can record some meditations and take some time for me. So it's identifying what I need in order to be really healthy. So self-care is, I have daily things that I do, meditation, sometimes I'll journal, taking time to just sit and read, like just creating, even if it's 10 to 15 minutes of just breathing, like focusing on belly breathing. When I was heavily in my state of sort of exhaustion, and I had adrenal fatigue last year and this whole sort of myriad of different health issues, I realized the quality of my breath, just even how I was breathing was so anxious and crazy, and just so, I was barely breathing. Like I was literally, and that turned into like panic attacks, and just like, I couldn't drive at one point, and just like really not sort of listening to my body. So even just taking 10 to 15 minutes to sit and just like focus on belly breathing and getting, like that calm state, activating that parasympathetic nervous system, just stuff like that. So breathing, creating space for myself in my daily life. I've got my sort of day-to-day things that I do, but in terms of like bigger things, I know that's a bit more of a luxury, but having things where I will take, go to Whistler for a night by myself.
Yeah.
And I know that it takes, a really supportive, like I've got a really supportive partner who will allow me to do that kind of stuff, who will support me to do that. So, but I just realized there's those things, and scheduling in things that light me up and make me feel really good is so important.
So important.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I realized if I don't do that, I am not showing up to the world in a nice place. That's when I get crabby and ratty, and I'm just not. I'm living in reactivity versus, mindful, purposeful, sort of intentional choices and decisions.
It's so cliche, but yeah, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can put someone else's on, and you can't pour from an empty cup. All those cliches, but they're there for a reason. It's so very true. I want to unpack a little bit. You mentioned your like adrenal fatigue and just burnout last year. What do you think was the big thing that helped you turn around? And you said that you're probably the healthiest and happiest you've been in a long time. What was some of the what were some of the big things that really helped you turn around? And obviously these practices that you've been incorporating, but is there something in particular, like a practice or a coach or something that really helped you turn the corner there?
Yeah, it's a lot of factors, but honestly it comes down to self-acceptance, self-care, self-love. I have some amazing, I know a lot of people know I've been working with a lady named Dr. Divi for about 6 or 7 years, and she's been instrumental in terms of supporting me, guiding me, having somebody who's had my back, and that's I think why I'm so passionate about going into coaching and why I've been coaching people, is because I'm so in love with giving that back to people. But yeah, last year was intense. I started the year with flus, and that turned into pneumonia. Pneumonia turned into really bad adrenal fatigue, to the point where like anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I couldn't teach actually, so there was a point in time where I would start teaching at the studio, and I would start getting really lightheaded and like dizzy, and like there was one time where I was teaching and I literally dropped down to my knees. I was on my knees, and I was like, I started just continuing to teach, but like rather than stop and say like I'm not okay, I just kept pushing. Like that's just what caused, I think, a lot of that. It was just
that's
like push,
metaphor for what we do in life.
Oh my God, pushing. And at one point, I had an instructor in the class, and I looked at her and I was like, I'm gonna faint. I'm gonna pass out. I need you to like teach. So like she had to tap in, and so for a long time I had to keep like ginger ale in the fridge and things that I had mentally decided were things that were gonna, like if I was having a crash, that were gonna help me. So not fun. Like I couldn't drive. Panic attacks. Like the thought of having the responsibility. There was one time I drove myself to the hospital. I couldn't pick up my daughter. Like it got really bad. It was the universe trying to knock on me, saying like, when are you gonna make the change? Like what are you doing? The way that you are operating is not working. Yeah, it was just, and of course during the adrenal stuff, like I would get out of bed in the morning and I would have a cup of tea and some breakfast and I would go back to bed. I could barely parent. I couldn't work out. I tried working out, of course. In my mind, I was like, if you don't work out, you're gonna get fat. Like that was just like, again, a very strong pattern. Thank you, subconscious mind. So that was a deep-rooted pattern that I think the adrenal and all the health stuff really, in a way, it's a huge gift, because it brought to attention like the fact that, number one, the way I was operating was not working. I was working 100% to please people and not for myself. Like it was just always like carting my daughter around. Like there's times I feel really like a lot of shame around the fact that I was like, felt like Eva was, second to survival of a brand new business, survival of trying to make everyone, meet all ends. At the time we didn't have the means to sort of have a studio manager. I was doing everything. I mean, I was working from the NICU. Like had my laptop out. Eva was she was premature 6 weeks, and again, I know that was from stress.
Wow.
Having her so early. So it was one of these things that kept spiraling, and the adrenal stuff got, because I was, I think, in such a low immune system, I was so susceptible to kind of everything. So I got shingles in the summer, and it was one of those points where I was like, am I gonna die? Like, I remember asking, my friend was going to see Divi, and I was like, can you just ask Divi if I'm gonna die? Because I literally, can you tune into my energy? Because I feel like I'm gonna die. And then I had that crazy tree branch fall on me in North Vancouver and snaps Yeah, I know. We were sitting doing some work, my studio manager and I, and we were just sitting there underneath a tree, and there's dead calm, like beautiful, not even a cloud in the sky, no breeze, and like we just heard this deafening crack, and I looked up from the table we were at, and she's like, "Rah!" She's like, "Fucking move! Like, get up and run!" And I was like, "What the hell?" And I got up off the picnic table and stepped forward and tried to run, and this branch that was probably, oh my god, 13 feet maybe, like covered my whole body, like literally pummeled me from the back and smashed my head and my back, and that's kind of when I hit the like, I think I'm gonna die. I think I'm gonna die. But again, it was just, at the time I wasn't seeing, the universe gives you like the taps, the like, okay, so hey, just a soft little, nudge, and then the nudges turn into like,
branches falling
branches on you, taking you out, because I realized I just wasn't listening. I was not willing to make a change. I had in my mind that if I'm going to be a successful business owner, this is how I have to operate. I have to do more, I have to push more, I have to make more, I have to just kind of go, and I operate from a very different place now, that health scare and that journey kind of took me down a very, and also realizing that I was ignoring my spiritual side and what I know I came here to create, and who I know I'm meant to show up in this world and write and to speak and to do so many more things. And so I think it was just a big wake-up call, because I was really heavily into sort of spirituality and mindfulness work, maybe a couple years before I opened the studio, and then that's how I really feel like the creation of the studio even came. I would wake up at 3 a.m. and be like, SWEAT Vancity, the mission statement. I meditated one morning, and the mission statement came to me like as clear as anything. Wow. So I know what it feels like to operate and to manifest and to have these things effortlessly show up, that are so authentic and so true. And I felt that when I was opening the studio. I felt so in the flow and so supported. And then when things sort of didn't go as planned, how I envisioned them, things just started to slowly get, and I was going through a really tough time, and just sort of with a partner, and there's a lot of sort of factors that led to it, but there was a lot of things that kind of just accumulated that ended up sort of taking me into fear. And once fear got a hold of me, I felt like I was operating from that place of fear and lack, and partially because it was my reality at the time, right? And I think that it can be really easy to see like, well, this is my reality, this is so scary, and this is so traumatic, and this is so XYZ, and to sort of get in that belief system of like, this is how it's victim mentality, this is how it's going to be, this is how life's going to be. And I feel like it's taken me a couple years to really wash that out and decide like, is that my truth and is that my reality? And as this course, I'm currently in this Mind, Body, Spirit coaching program with Vivi, and I decided to take that kind of at the end of last year. I got the hit that it was time to start doing some stuff that was going to fill me up and really sort of take me more into my purpose, and that coaching program's been amazing, and it's just it's been really cool. The more energy and effort I put into this work, because of course in my brain I'm like, I can't take on a coaching program right now, I've got a daughter, I've got this business, I need to work on my business, I need to do the blah blah blah, and then it was a very big trust, leap of faith, but to trust that my intuition was saying, do it doesn't make sense, how am I going to find the money, how am I going to find this, like all the belief systems that had been really running my life up until that point, were all activated. How are you going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. Like all this voices in my head. And there was something inside of me that said, if you don't do this, like, we're going to keep going. Like it was literally like, we're going to keep pushing you. We're going to keep going. We're going to fuck you up even more. If you don't want to, we're going to keep going. And I just knew that it was time to make a change. And it's been really cool to unpack a lot of sort of belief systems, ways of operating, just kind of understanding, being a bit more conscious awareness, just living on purpose and intentionally, and slowing down and realizing the power of simplicity, and working and living with intention versus that like, okay, well, this is, the structure of business, this is how it's going to happen, this is how you have to work. And I was like, this isn't working, So anyways. Yeah, I went on a tangent, but
it's huge.
Hardcore tangent.
There's so much to unpack in that, and I'm like, okay, which direction do I want to take this? Yeah. But something that really stood out for me within that whole story, which thank you for sharing, is just your vulnerability and your owning it. Like you talked about just the hardship that you went through, and like shame around, like not being able to be there as a parent, and you talked about, just everything that you've been through. And the big thing that like I've kind of started to realize, and and just talking with other people and learning, is that owning our shit is one of the most powerful things we can do. And I think that was really cool, the way you were like, I dealt with this is my story, and I'm owning it, and now I'm turning the corner. So I really I commend you for that, because I think that's really, really powerful, and is what is making you even more powerful than you already are. So I commend you for that. That's really, really cool.
Thank you. It's I know a lot of people who live in, well, I did for a long time, live in the shame. It's like when you bring to light your darkest, or what you perceive as your darkest areas, like, of your life, like, when you can verbalize that, it takes away all its power, right? Like, I know for me, the minute that I voice, well, this is actually what I did, and I'm so, ashamed, and have somebody look at you and say, that's okay, like, I love you, and it's all good, and no problem, and, that's just, I realize as well with that, what you're just saying there, just as a little side note, is that I now have, like, total, come to terms with the fact that I'm always doing the best that I can in that moment. Like, I know that that's the thing, is that if I am ashamed of something I did, it's just what I was just in the best, like, I was doing the best that I could in that very moment.
And using the tools that we have from past experiences, like growing up, and, we get our patterning and our subconscious beliefs, and those serve you to a certain point 100%. Until they don't anymore. And then we're still behaving from those patterns, even though they're not serving us. And so it's a really hard distinction to make. And so that's where that self-awareness comes in, and be like, oh, okay, where is that actually coming from? What is that subconscious belief that is making me behave in such a way? And then as soon as you shine the light on that, it's gone. It loses all its power.
Yeah, you face it, and you're like, oh, okay, I see you. Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, and then admitting it, or talking about it, or releasing that shame around it. Not only does it, take away its power, but you might find other people who are like, hey, I've done that before. Hey, like, I've had that experience before. Let's hash this out. Let's unpack that.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. The amount, I kind of just started giving less fucks, if you want to call it, like a while ago, and I just sort of said, like, I was like, yeah, this is what blah, 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 and being really honest about where I was at, because for a long time I was like, I'm alone. Nobody understands. I'm so shameful. Oh my God, I'm failing at life. I'm this, I'm that, and just kind of that story was just like that momentum was feeding into the thought patterns, and it got pretty dark for a while, and I was just like, that's not true. Like it's I'm creating that awareness now where I'm like, that's not. I can hear that story. That can still might be there in the background, but it's not something I operate from anymore. Where I have that. I almost see it as like the gap. It's like having a gap between like. Okay, I can have that thought. Oh, I see you though. Like, and the more that I found that I was open and honest and truthful with people, I just found it kind of cut away the bullshit of the conversations. Like, I find that a lot of my conversations now are sort of really rich and really authentic and really, just inspiring. And I find the more that I've opened up around my vulnerabilities or things that have happened in the past that, have crippled, will cripple if you decide that that's who you are, that victim. Like, I've decided I'm going to melt into that victim mentality. I'm going to like really drive that home. That's where you can, but I made the choice to be really vulnerable. And the more I have, the more I find that people who are meant for me, or people who are aligned with that or have experienced that, it just helps them feel like, okay, holy shit, I'm not alone. Because I know for many years I felt like I was alone. I was the only person experiencing that. And so it's really nice to know that there's other people going through similar similar stuff.
Exactly. Like, being able to talk about it will open you right up to a whole new community, and I think that's like really, really powerful. So moving forward now, obviously with Sweat and with your, your more soulful productions, whatever you want to call it, productions, your platform here. What's kind of your vision moving forward now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love creating. I realize that. For a long time, I used to get really hard. I'm really sort of down on myself for not loving the the more operations, administration, like that kind of stuff. I was just like, so you need to be good at. And I just realized like where I'm really powerful and where I'm really good is in creation, is in visioning. It's that sort of, and I'm really excited to get back into that. For Sweat, I see growth, I see expansion, I see different programs, I see potentially other locations. Like, I love. When I first opened Sweat, the vision was to sort of be, a safe space, have 4 walls where you can come in, you can get an amazing workout, you can feel incredible, you can be really supported, have a really, amazing people greeting you. Like, just the whole experience is like to make you feel like really safe, inspired, and leaving feeling like just on a high, like finding that place where you feel, you look forward to coming to. just to gain that strength, because I feel like when you gain strength physically, that mental element comes in. And so I see potentially other locations for Sweat. I see growth within our current store. I mean, we're currently creating new classes. Like, I'm really in that sort of creativity right now, building, budding, like different stuff is always kind of coming through. And I'd like to branch out even on our retreats and stuff, and those have been amazing. I'm so grateful, like, that I'm on to my third one this fall, and we're already half full, and it's just been by word of mouth. Like, it's just that where I feel such a high when I go on those retreats, and I'm there, and I get to know people and spend time with them, and kind of bring home that whole, like, yes, let's work out, but let's also, like, where are you at, and how can we support you, and how can you feel really, nurtured and loved, and have an amazing, we have like a private chef who comes, and just the whole experience is so nurturing. And I just, to see people and to see emails when I get back, and or messages saying, like, that changed my life, or that conversation, or that experience, like, I'm now doing, it's like activated me to go do this and this now, and that's like why I booked my second retreat. Because obviously it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of prepping, and it's a lot of that stuff. I just, seeing those messages was just like, this is where the magic is, and the property is just incredible, and it's just, there's so many amazing things about it. So I see the retreats growing. I see branching out, maybe even going, internationally. I don't know, like, what that looks like, but I see more of that. I'm launching myself to be a teacher on Insight Timer, so I get a lot of channeled messages from the universe. I was kind of shy about saying anything a long time ago, but I just realized, I'm like, anytime I share them with people are like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. So I realize, again, by me hiding, I'm not serving myself, because I'm not being authentic, and I'm also not serving people who really need that message. So I'm going to start recording. I just will sometimes, like, write, and I don't even remember, like, what I have written, and I'll go back, and be like, what is this? Like, who is this for? What is this? And I realize, I'm like, I'm getting all these messages, and I'm not delivering them. Yeah. So I'm going to start doing teaching on the Insight Timer. I am in the middle of writing a book. Amazing. So I'm in the middle of doing that. It's kind of it's a fucking gong show, if you want to call it that. If you're looking for an entertaining book, that'll be for you. It's going to be something where it's really about my life growing up, because again, like, my story is pretty bizarre, growing up as an overweight child, and then kind of going through life wandering, not really having any sense of purpose, going from job to job, having belief systems, not helpful belief systems around money, or I've had, you name it, I've sort of had the shitty belief system. I'm not worthy, I don't deserve, I have no money, and just seeing those patterns play out, and then kind of finding the sort of roller coaster of my 20s, and being engaged when I was 19, and going to Vegas 25 times in my 20s, and like just going through. I dated partners primarily who have had I've been sort of classic codependent addictions, sort of, or dating partners with addictions, trying to fix other people so that I don't have to fix myself or deal with my own shit, really. So it goes through that. It goes through kind of the gong show of, like, holy fuck, I'm opening a business. Like, who am I to open? That whole thing, that whole chatter of, like, who are you to open a business? You don't know. You've never done business, programming. You've never gone to school for that. So kind of showing that it doesn't matter where you come from, what your story is. If you make a decision, then that's not going to define you. Then you're really capable of anything. Like, sometimes I walk into space and I'm like, I fucking do this. Like, this is insane. Like, I kind of have to, like, pinch myself and say, like, every time somebody walks through the door and does a class or says, like, oh my God, I feel amazing, or just hearing that feedback, like, that's what keeps me going. But I feel like it's time now that the studio is doing well, and we're kind of in this, like, amazing growth, happening right now. I feel like I have the space to do more creation. So meditations, writing, I'm really passionate about. I love leading, like, workshops and stuff like that. I see speaking, writing. I love to do my own podcasts. Like, I love hearing other people's shit. I love hearing, like, because I do a lot of that in person, where we'll sit down and I'll have these 3-hour conversations with people, and they're like, you're being vulnerable? Okay, this is actually what happened for me. And I'm like, fuck yes, like, that's awesome. We need to share this, because, like, people would have, because I say to people all the time, like, people would have no idea that you're like that. Yeah. Because, again, we're sort of, I think everyone's very sort of nervous to show these edges of us, these parts of us that we consider, like, I gotta put that away, shame, put that away, vulnerability, all that kind of stuff, where I just realized, like, where everyone has something, everyone's got their thing. There's always, whether it's somebody who's died from cancer, whether it's somebody who's lost somebody, whether it's addiction, whether it's like whatever it is, everyone's got it. It just manifests into different forms. So I love kind of highlighting that, like, we are all in this together, and we're, let's just
empower each other.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be a big sort of sob fest where all we're doing is highlighting the bad stuff, but it's like, how can we take that shitty stuff that's happened to us that, we're actually really responsible for? That's been a huge lesson for me as well, is taking responsibility to what I have manifested in my life to date based on my belief systems. Like, it just comes back to me, where it's easy to say, well, this happened to me, that person did this, and it's like, well, how about I take responsibility for the fact that I was a co-creator in that, and that's just what that was, and that can change at any moment. So anyways, long story short, a lot of stuff I feel like on the horizon. The meditations I feel like are going to be, or like those talking about
downloads,
those downloads, I think sharing those with the world, so I'm really excited about. I don't know, I think there's a lot of stuff on the horizon. I feel like I'm in that sort of creation. I'm coming back out of that fear fog, that sort of reactive way of living. And
the really cool thing that I see with all this is that you've gone from a place of like fear and lack and all that. You're in a place of like abundance and love right now, and look at the creativity that's coming through to you. I think that's just an absolute testament to how our state of mind and our perspective and our lenses can really just open up our creativity channels. And when we're in that, like, I have to do this, I have to do that lack and, fear mode, there's no creativity coming through, because there's no space, there's no opening, there's no channels that are open to potential and to abundance. And
100%. I can't remember what I was listening to this years ago, but this guy said, he's like, imagine us like a vessel, or whatever, a container, like, if we're full of ideas and beliefs of how the world is, and we're just like, he's like, the divine, the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, is always speaking to us, like always speaking to us. It's just that when I put my head down, I'm like, I just need to work harder and do more, and I'm going to schedule every second of my life, and everything is, and feeling like a victim to my schedule, or victim to, I get it, like, we're all busy, but it's like, if that is full, anything that comes to us that's positive, or anything that comes to us that's actually like divine guidance, being like, I know you're doing this and you're really putting your head down and working, but it could be 10 times easier, and here's the answer. But we're not programmed to think that way. It's like, I need to work harder and do more and to blah 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 in order to get to what I want. So it's like, that's where I said I'm trying to listen to more inspired action, where if I get up and I'm like, I'm not feeling like working right now, I can feel that, and if I do it, it's gonna be, why am I doing it right now? It's okay, it's out of like pushing and forcing. Then I'll take myself for like a walk in the woods, and I will take my dog, pot roast, and we'll go for like a little cruise. I know. We'll take a little cruise, and I'll be walking, and part of my brain's like, you're wasting time right now, what are you doing, blah blah blah, and then part of me is like so open, and I just try to breathe and relax, and like all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I should call that person. And then that person answers, and it's just this like beautiful, effortless, flowing, like, I felt what it feels like to be in the flow with the universe, where like, it's just, I'm like letting go, I'm dropping the oars, and I'm like, it's not like I'm not doing anything, but I'm like listening for those cues, I'm listening for that moment, like, okay, now's the time to do this. Like for posting, for example, I kept questioning myself, I'm like, why am I not posting? This is last, my retreat in March, I was like, why am I not posting? Like, I kept being like, I kept berating myself. I'm like, Christine, you need to fill this retreat. You're not doing anything, blah, 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 blah. And then I got the inspired action. I was like, now's the time to post. And I posted, and like 3 people messaged me and were like, I want to sign up. So it's just like, there's all these times, and I feel like it's just learning to trust that, because it's a big, like, it just sounds so like woo-woo-y sometimes, like, oh, just trust, no problem. It's not that I'm not doing anything, it's just that I'm trying to make more space available, so that when those, that divine intervention does say, here, now's the time, do this now, it just makes things so effortless and so easy and so flowing, versus having to grind. And I just feel like there's this big shift happening right now of less masculine, sort of like, that patriarchal, like, okay, go, push, harder, more. And it's so out of flow with who I am that I think I tried to do that. I tried to grind and impress people and show that I could do it, and for so long, and now I'm just like, that's not serving me, I'm getting sick. And I think because I'm quite sensitive, I was just like, I need to step back, and I need to figure out how can I like have longevity as a business owner, and how can I be in flow, and how can I be like true to, integral to myself, and also, serve the community and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's just been this like interesting dance, but the more I'm step back and just allow that sort of divine, again, those messages to come through, the like, okay, now's the time, the easier life has been and is going. So it's just, it's pretty cool to see.
Amazing. I love that. That's such a neat way of just changing our lenses. And that's like ultimately, I think the biggest thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is that if you can just look at life through a different lens, things will change completely. It's just swapping that hat, changing that lens, whatever you want to say. It just can create a whole new space for all new possibilities. I think what you're doing is like amazing. I'm so inspired by it. What are some of your favorite resources right now? Like any books or podcasts or anything in particular that you're using a lot of right now?
Yeah. Okay. So I've got obviously Dr. Divi's course. We're in that right now. We loving some of the material from there. I find that Louise Hay's "You Can Heal Your Life," that book is really amazing. I listen to a lot of Wayne Dyer. He popped in my awareness right after he died. Actually, I found out I wasn't really following his work prior, but he popped in my awareness. He kind of popped in. I realized he was dead actually at the time, but he kind of like floated into my awareness and gave me some very interesting messages. It's funny because I only just this last year started watching his stuff, and I realized why he kept popping. I call him like Wayne on tap because it's like I can like ask for him and he's like right there, which is so crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bizarre. But Wayne on tap. But he, but I started watching his work, some of his old programs, and if I'm driving, I'll put on YouTubes and different stuff like that. And I find his work. I follow a lot of his work. I just find the messaging. I'm able to. Receive it, because I mean, again, I know sometimes for me, part of my reasoning of like, who am I to do this, and who cares? Like, does anyone really care if I do this, and blah blah. And there's so many spiritual teachers, and there's so many coaches, and there's blah 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 blah. But I realize like, there's so many out there. But think of like how many people I've listened to, and I can only hear. It's the same message.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which spiritual teacher it is. I mean, yes, there's slight differences, but around spiritual teachers, it's the same message. But I can only hear it through that channel. So I realize everybody kind of has. Whether it's predetermined or whatever it is, like they have your tribe or whatever you want to call it, but like that is they need your message, and if you're not servicing people, then you're not going to be able to hear it. So anyways, that's another tangent. But Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, I'm really watching. Rebecca Campbell actually is somebody who I literally have her book right beside me right now. I use that a lot sometimes with my coaching clients, and we'll pull just like I'll open it up and I'll just get a hit. She's been incredible. I did a mentorship with her actually 4 years ago, I think it was, when I was opening SWEAT, and she was instrumental and just incredible. And I find her book, I always revisit. It's like a Bible for me. That
it's a little tattered over there.
I know. Latest the New Black. She actually signed it when I did my mentorship with her. She sent me
so cool.
I know. She said thanks for working your light. It was that's been really cool for me. What else? I do a lot of watching. Like I just recently bought that Hay House World Summit. Like I've been watching some of the recordings. James Van Prague, all the teachers. I find there's always like kind of something, but I find that Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, obviously Dr. Divi and Lynette, who run the coaching program, and Rebecca Campbell are probably kind of my like closest go-to that I'm always dabbling in books, but I find that those are sort of the ones that I really Abraham Hicks I listen a lot to, stuff like that. Those are the ones that I really listen to. I just find I'll pop them in. I love Jen Sincero's. If I found that when I had lost connection to sort of my spirituality and that sort of world, I found that sometimes the teachings were a little too far for where I was at the time. So I found a really great kind of in the middle book is Jen Sincero's You Are Badass.
Great.
I actually that's actually a book that we work from sometimes when I run my retreats, and I give everyone a copy and stuff. It's just that I find that it's a really funny, like non-intimidating way to understand some of the concepts, the principles of like universal and how the divine works and how the universe works and stuff like that. So I find that that's a really great book that if you're kind of newer to it and you're kind of like dabbling a little bit, I find that's a really great way to kind of like kind of enter in the world. I find that there's this, and where I see myself as well in this is that I find that there's so many people I come in contact with who really are like wanting peace and wanting that sense of, and I know it's like I can see that you're here, and I see sometimes that like even the teachings are a little far for me to like grasp, where it's like a bit dense. Like I find the information like, oh God, okay, I got to be in the right headspace for this. So it's almost like I see bridging the gap between the two worlds. It's like I've been unconscious completely, where I've been living my life like reactionary, not having no clue about the fact that I completely am in charge of my life and have ownership over that. And I've also been in a state where I've been like in this elated, like blah, blah, and I'm like, how can I bridge that so that people can, that there's that sort of space in between that is so magical that can start to, and I think it's happening already in the industry, but it's just, I really want to be a part of that.
That's so cool. I love that. And like that's just it. And I know Davey and Lynette always say X marks the spot. Like where you are is where you're meant to be.
Totally.
And some people aren't ready for those more advanced, bigger concepts. Like we have to kind of just, guide it where we are. And if we can be expanders for others in that, then we're doing amazing work right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Before I ask my last question to you, where can people find you online? Like what are your business website, Instagrams, all the socials? Where
all the socials. I really should put some more effort in my Instagram. My Instagram is Christine Banno, so it's just Christine Banno, all lowercase. We have, the studio is at SWEAT.Vancity, so that's our Instagram handle. We're on Facebook as well. You can search us through their SWEAT Vancity studio. We're online. Our studio website is sweatvancity.com, so you can see kind of like our classes. Like that's sort of a really good opportunity to see like what we do at the studio and stuff like that. I'm building my own website, christinebanno.com. So I bought that domain for about 4 years in a row, and I just like, okay, now's the time. So on my website will be like my retreats, my coaching sessions, my all that kind of stuff. The studio, kind of a link to everything I do, because I find, again, I'm very multi-passionate, so I've sort of got all my stuff that I do on there. But if people wanted to get a hold of me, it would be probably my email, or Instagram. I'm not on Instagram a ton, like I'm sometimes, but either my Instagram, Christine Banno, just DM me, or my email address is christine@sweatvancity.com, so people can easily get me through there. Or whatever the other social networks might name.
Yeah, there's always messages or DMs or emails or whatever.
Totally. Yeah, email and Instagram are probably the easiest ways, but those are our ones right now. I'd like to build out a little bit into YouTube, into Insight, and Insight I'll probably be Christine Banno. I find that going by my name is probably one of the easier things than having sort of a different collective. But
totally.
Yeah.
So my last question, and I ask this one to everyone. What is your definition of balance?
Definition of balance. I don't know. I'm just trying to think what balance means. Balance really is everything. I mean, it's the key for me to have a really incredible experience in this lifetime. It's giving myself enough. It's giving myself permission to have. To have the responsibilities that I have and the things that I have created and take ownership for that, but it's also, and sort of do the work, and it's also giving myself permission to invest in what I love and what I love to do, and, because I think that, I've experienced really out of balance, and so I think, without going on too long for this, but balance is really what's keeping me, where my happiness is generated from. It's where I find sort of the greatest ease, and I'm able to navigate life with peace and with passion and with excitement and with flow, and I can tell very quickly when I'm getting out of balance. So it's something, it's kind of my barometer now, where I find my body will let me know very quickly if I'm getting out of balance, because things will start to manifest in my body, and that's when I get illnesses or susceptible to stuff like that. So balance is really, it's sort of my, for a long time it felt out of reach, like I felt like I was never going to find balance, but I feel like that kind of tipping point has gone from like, holy crap, I'm way out of balance, and it's getting slowly starting to come together for me. I'm not sure. It's a very long answer, but balance is really my kind of everything. It's what I'm constantly every single day working towards, is getting more refined into identifying what lights me up, and also what are my responsibilities and what are like the kind of to-do things I have to do, and kind of aligning those so that I can move forward with peace and with passion, and
I love that. I love that. So it's like a balance between your responsibility and ease and passion and love.
Yeah, because I think that both are so important. If you just do work, then you're probably not taking care of yourself, and if you just take care of yourself, then things like responsibilities probably aren't going to happen. So I think it's kind of collectively taking the things that are part of your life, part of the human experience, and having enough on each side of the spectrum to create happiness and joy, so that there's never that like lack of like, okay, well, yes, I'm really busy this week, but I'm taking care of myself in this way, and that creates, for me at least, balance, so that I can move forward with ease and with
I love that. Oh, that's like, it's what we're all seeking, isn't it?
We're getting there.
We are. Well, Christine, thank you so much for doing this. I know that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to find a lot of value in this, so I appreciate that, and thank you for shining your light.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me go on my tangents.
Oh, I love it. So that's where the magic lives. That's where the tangents are magic. That's the gold right there, so thank you for that.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found this episode as expansive as I did. If you enjoyed listening, please like, subscribe, and review. It means so much to us. If you would like to learn more about The Balanced Collective and our offerings, please visit www.thebalancedcollective.com or hit us up on Instagram @thebalancedcollective. Thank you so much, and please keep spreading your light.